bet you lived in you and a kid with Fairly Oddparents.
Yeah, right.
Welcome to Werezilla's Retrospective. I'm your host, Werezilla. The reputation of Nickelodeon movies are not good, to say the least. Oh, don't worry. We'll get to that someday. But for now, let's talk about the Fairly Oddparents, the cartoon about a kid, his fairy godparents, and wishes gone horribly wrong. Now, this is not the first TV movie it's had, but this one in particular is in live action starring Drake Bell. If you're expecting a punchline, it's this movie's quality. Let me put it this way. This is a show that allows for a lot of things to happen because it's based almost entirely around magic and wishes. That is far easier to do in animation. Not that it can't be done in live action, but they would need a much bigger budget than what a TV movie can allow. Now, there's nothing really wrong with telling a story on a smaller scale, but when it comes to a grand finale, bigger is better. We open 13 years after the events of the series on Timmy's 23rd birthday. I admit this opening does feel like an episode of the show, him fighting pirates and then parting on good terms, implying that they are a regularly wished for thing. However, the CGI models for Cosmo and Wanda are really bad in live action. Their son Poof's model isn't much better. Their minuscule size worked in the show because Timmy was also unnaturally small for a 10-year-old. Here, it's just a clash of style and real life, which doesn't fit really well. The fact that Drake Bell doesn't really seem like an older Timmy especially hurts. Now, before I go any further, there appears to be an elephant asking me why the fairies are still with Timmy, even though he's an adult now. Well, that is explained, and it is stupid.
A godchild loses his fairies when he grows up, not me. He leaves home, not me. Or experiences life's true magic, love.
Well?
Again, not me.
And apparently that's all it takes to make Jorgen von Strangle, toughest fairy in the universe, completely unable to act. Do I need to remind you that Jorgen actually hates Timmy? Also, this actor is both trying too hard and doesn't look like he knows what he's doing at the same time.
I will make you grow up, for I am Jorgen, the most powerful fairy ever!
I'm angry. So Timmy's day continues, and we see his parents are just as unlikable now as they ever were, as they try to shove him out of the house. Now, don't get me wrong, trying to act like he's still 10 is a bad sign, but this scene, and indeed all their scenes, just prove that they are the worst parents in television. At least ones that aren't evil. Okay, their stupidity borders on being evil, but they're not antagonists. Unfortunately. Anyway, we see that Jorgen wasn't the only one who just lets Timmy get away with acting like a kid. The whole school system apparently has no problem with a 23-year-old man attending 5th grade. Oh, who am I kidding? This is the same series where a man was held in a daycare center for the majority of his life because his family obviously abandoned him there, and they never let him leave. Also, Crocker apparently is still a teacher and is still obsessed with... Yeah, this is another example of something not translating well to live action. Crocker's spasms can't be as exaggerated as in the show, so just like Jorgen, it looks like the actor is trying too hard. Moving on, Timmy and company stumble upon a money-grubbing oil businessman by the name of Magnate, ordering the demolishing of a tree, and a tree hugger ties herself to the tree itself. And again, because of what show this is, Timmy wishing for the bulldozers to break down was the only thing that stopped Magnate from just letting her get run over. You know, at least when Dino Thunder did this, they turned the tree into a monster of the week to make it slightly less cliche. Oh, and the tree hugger? It's Tootie. Yes, Tootie. The same little girl who had an enormous crush on Timmy that got so severe he had to resort to a restraining order. And now he's suddenly in love with her. We know this because of Cosmo and Wanda's love meter. If I had to judge based on the chemistry between the two actors, I'd be less inclined to think this. Back to, the plot, Crocker meets with Magnate and teams up to capture Cosmo, Wanda, and Poof. I got to say, Magnate is rather accepting of what Crocker has to say, though I suppose this makes him far less oblivious as everyone else in Dimsdale, seeing blatantly magical events that happen in front of them and they barely react. And it's hard to argue with his logic either.
Sue, Do we have a deal?
It's true. The only thing that could stop someone like me would have to be magical fairies.
I guess we're in business then.
If you can help me build my hotel, then I guess we are.
So Cosmo and Wanda try to break up Timmy and Tootie so they can stay with him, and after literally 15 minutes of this 57-minute long movie, Tootie overreacts to not getting a kiss and fucks off, only to get immediately captured by Magnate. What was the point of kidnapping her? I thought you were after Cosmo and Wanda. I have to ask because just as Poof guilt trips the two into going after her, Crocker appears out of nowhere and captures them, using
an unlicensed nuclear accelerator.
Tootie is brought to Magnate's lair, which looks suspiciously like a McDonald's playpen. Apparently Magnate grew up too fast and wants that childhood back. And with Crocker's newest machine, he can do so, by draining the magic energy from the fairies to get him anything he wants. Anyway, Timmy calls upon the aid of his friends Chester and AJ. Well, okay, I say friends loosely because in all of the short scenes they've appeared in this movie, they just insult Timmy for not growing up and moving on with his life, like they did. Finally!
I know you're not gonna believe this, but they're my fairy godparents. They've been granting my wishes for years.
I'm sorry, what did you just say?
They're my fairy godparents. They've been granting my wishes for years.
And the reason Cosmo and Wanda didn't vanish right then and there is the fact that Timmy isn't allowed to tell anyone about their existence is the biggest recurring plot point of the series. It's part of the reason Crocker is a villain in the first place. Chester and AJ get Timmy to Magnate's lair and then immediately abandon him. He was willing to confide in his greatest secret and promise to wish up girlfriends for them, and they just leave. So Magnate starts making wishes, which is starting to drain not just the magic, but also the life from the fairies. I remind you that Poof is a baby. Ouch. And then he kicks Crocker into a bottomless pit for no reason. I'd like to say that the resulting climax once Timmy arrives is worth it, but I can't. It's rather underwhelming, actually. Magnate does little, Tootie frees herself, and then Timmy kisses Tootie. And that is what frees the fairies. Not the thing that we canonically know is what makes them go away forever.
Don't forget to feed the dog! Cosmo, he doesn't have a dog! Well, if you get one, don't forget to feed it!
No, we just wish Timmy never got one. So Magnate just goes away, Timmy and Tootie are together, and it looks like Timmy will never see his fairies again. That is until Jorgen returns Cosmo, Wanda, and Poof because
That we, the Fairy Council, officially create the Timmy Turner loophole, which states, if there was ever a boy named Timmy Turner, who has kept and loved his fairies for over 13 years,
And saved Fairy World on more than a few occasions.
right, and if he promises to make wishes only for others, and not for his own selfish purposes, he may keep his fairies.
isn't the subtitle of the movie Grow Up, Timmy Turner? And the message being kids do grow up eventually? Doesn't Cosmo and Wanda staying with him throw away the very message it's trying to tell? So Timmy and the fairies start a business to grant wishes to others. Chester and AJ apparently got those girlfriends after all. Timmy's parents are still unlikable, and Crocker reappears because that pit wasn't so bottomless after all. Again, because it's not a cartoon, that fall just looks painful instead of funny. Though Crocker being in more pain than the audience is hardly a new concept. This movie is underwhelming to say the least. The plot has been seen over and over again, several characters are just flat out miscast, and its ending contradicts its own message. There are actually a number of short scenes with a character from the show that don't actually contribute anything except to extend the runtime, and a number of subplots that go nowhere. The worst being Poof's first words, which he said in his first appearance, so this turns out to just be a bad joke.
Yo, man, it's gonna be so cool, man. We're gonna be bumping, man, trying to help the boys out. You know how we do it.
What? What is going on with this show?
Now, I guess I should be grateful that Cosmo and Wanda are voiced by their actors from the show instead of being recast, as is Timmy's dad, who resumes his role despite being in live action. And admittedly, this moment, where Timmy does finally grow up and ultimately has to say goodbye to his fairies, is a moment that would have made for an interesting story. But unfortunately, this movie just squanders it. It just goes to show that some cartoons shouldn't go to live action. There are going to be greater limits on what they can do. Some things were just meant to stay in the form they originated in. Do you guys hear that? Oh. You know, if I didn't know any better, I'd say that was the drum. Hey everyone, glad you stuck around after the credits because I have a special announcement. Starting next week, I'll be uploading a new series of videos, Werezilla's Rebuttal. It will be based around topics in fiction, be they reactions from fans or events in the work itself. Now keep in mind that the topic has to be part of a franchise that I've already covered in Werezilla's Retrospective itself. If you want me to talk about something like the Sonic recolor epidemic, then I'd have to talk about Sonic itself first. I'll see you guys then.